snap. There's the kick. It's gone. Oh my gosh. The kick is gone.
Boston Sports Nerd present Joe's Fantasy Field Goal.
Welcome back, everyone, to week 5. Well, week 5 just ended, but week 6 of the fantasy football season. I'm your host of Joe's Fantasy Field Goal, Joe. And I hope you guys are all doing better than I am in fantasy. It looks like I'm going to win one matchup this week out of the 6 I'm in. Rough week. Rough couple weeks, actually. I lost OBJ in a league. I lost Dalvin Cook in a couple, which really hurt. I was cruising in those. But hopefully you guys are doing better than me. But we're back with another full slate of Joe's Fantasy Field Goal. I got streamers for you, waiver wire wonders, and matchups to go over. So we'll get right into it with the quarterback and defensive streamers for this week.
Islands in the stream, that is what we are. No one in between. How can we be wrong?
Alright, so let's start with the quarterback streamers. I got a good amount here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quarterback streamers for you. I did 7 because I like to do 50% owned or less, but it was slim pickings this week. So I'm going to give you 7 names. There are a few on here that are less than 50% owned. I think there's 3, which is what I usually promise. But there are also some guys who are like 80%-ish owned, or 60%-ish owned, and you can just take a peek and see if maybe they're on the waiver wire. They might not be, they probably won't be, but they could be, you never know, and they would be a good start for you this week just based on matchups. We'll start with number 1, who is less than 50% owned, definitely. And that is Josh McCown for the New York Jets taking on New England this week. I know New England's defense looked much better against Tampa Bay, but I need to see it 2 weeks in a row. They are still the worst defense in the NFL, so I'm still pretty confident that they will. I mean, they still gave up 300 yards and a touchdown to Jameis Winston. He had a perfectly fine fantasy game. Not a ton of points, but for fantasy purposes, 300 yards and a touchdown will probably get the job done. So Josh McCown is a good streamer this week. Next on the list is a guy I think is owned in most leagues, but he might be kicking around the waiver wire since he had a bye week this week, and that's Kirk Cousins from the Redskins. He's taking on the 49ers. The 49ers defense is trash. Kirk Cousins looks like he started to figure out and all the problems that were going on in Washington's offense earlier in the year. So I really like Kirk Cousins this week against the 49ers. Next on the list is Deshaun Watson versus Cleveland. Here's another guy that's, I think, like 80% owned, but take a peek. He might still be out there. It's a wonderful matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland's awful. They've looked awful every game. Their offense is not good either, so they just keep giving the ball back to the opposing team. And their defense can't stop anyone. So anyone who really plays Cleveland, you should play that quarterback. And Deshaun Watson has looked pretty fucking great against much better defenses than Cleveland. So I really like Deshaun Watson this week against Cleveland. Next on the list is Matty Stafford against the Saints. Matt Stafford is probably owned again in most leagues, but he might not be. So check the waiver wire, as with Deshaun Watson and Kirk Cousins. He has a good matchup against the Saints. Saints defense is still the Saints defense you thought it was. And I think they're playing in New Orleans, which means you'll probably get a good Drew Brees, which means New Orleans will score, which forces Detroit to throw the ball. So I'm expecting a good game from Matt Stafford. Next on the list is a guy who's definitely not owned in 50% of leagues, and my personal streaming candidate from the week that we just played, and that is Jacoby Brissett for Indy. He is playing the Titans this week, who have a wretched defense, and I really like that matchup. And if you listened to me last week and grabbed him, you could just roll him into this week. I think he'll be a perfectly fine play. It looked like he was struggling a little bit, but he managed to get it on track, and he ended up with as a perfectly fine streaming candidate in most leagues. So I really like Jacoby Brissett. I don't think Andrew Luck is back yet. He will be throwing in practice, but I don't think he's actually back. Now is probably the time you want to go look to see if Andrew Luck is on the waiver wire and pick him up, because he should be coming back soon. He has definitely started throwing. I just think it's going to be one more week, at least. Next on the list is Mariota versus Indy, the opposite quarterback in this matchup, if he's healthy. If Mariota is playing, he's worth starting. Another guy who's owned in a lot of leagues, but he might have been dropped due to the fact that he wasn't playing last week. Someone might have needed that roster spot and put him on your waiver wire, and now you can scoop him, and he has a very, very good matchup against the Indy defense that is still very bad. And the last one is a guy who I don't really trust. I put him in here because he is most likely available, but he does have a good matchup, and that is Flacco versus the Bears. The Baltimore Ravens offense has looked awful. And I'm expecting Flacco to turn it around, and there's not a better matchup to do it than the Bears, who have an okay defense, but nothing to write home about, and they have a rookie quarterback on the other side, so the Ravens defense might be able to take advantage of that and give Flacco some good field position and the ball back quite often. So look into Flacco as a streamer if none of these other options are available. Move into defensive streamers. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here. Move into some defensive streamers. I have the Ravens versus the Bears, the matchup I was just talking about. The Bears are playing a rookie quarterback in what will be his second game at this point. The Ravens' pass defense and defense overall has looked pretty good outside of that one crazy game in Jacksonville, or in London versus Jacksonville. Other than that, the Ravens have looked pretty good defensively, and I think Mitch Trubisky is going to have some trouble there. Next on the list is Falcons versus the Dolphins. Jay Cutler is the worst quarterback this year to ever play quarterback in the history of quarterbacks. He's disinterested. He is not engaged with the team. I don't think he has any interest in playing football. He's just looked awful. So I like the Falcons defense against the Dolphins. I like the Falcons against the Dolphins. Next on the list is the Chiefs, who are probably owned, but if they're not, they're playing Big Ben in Kansas City, so road Big Ben, who just turned the ball over 5 times to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another guy who just looks like he's done playing football. This is definitely Big Ben's last year. I don't think he has it anymore. And that Steelers offense has looked slow to start. And they're playing a very good Kansas City team in Kansas City, which is a hard place to play. Next on the list is Eagles versus Panthers. Now this is going to scare a lot of people off because Cam Newton has looked unstoppable the past 2 weeks. But I'm buying into the Eagles being a very good team, and I still am hesitant on Cam Newton, as I have been most of the year. I'm probably the least confident in this matchup out of all of them, but I would be willing to play the Eagles versus the Panthers because who knows when bad Cam Newton shows up, and if you can catch bad Cam Newton, your defense will put up points. Next on the list is Texans versus the Browns. This is probably a team that's owned already, I would imagine, in most leagues. But if for some reason they've been dropped, pick up the Texans definitely for this week because they are playing the Browns, who don't even know who their starting quarterback is, and have been awful. They look very much like the defeated Browns that they have been for the past couple years. So I really like the Texans if they are available, which they are probably not, but take a look anyway. And for the last matchup, it's the Rams versus the Jaguars, and I actually like both defenses in this matchup. The Jaguars, I'm a little bit more down on than the Rams because they have a very bad run-stop defense, and the Rams like to run the ball. So there's a potential that Todd Gurley has a very big game against the Jaguars, and I think Blake Bortles will struggle against this Rams defense, and the Rams have a very good pass rush. The Jaguars' offensive line isn't that great. So I really like the Rams more than the Jaguars, but I would play either team in this game pretty confidently. So pick up one of those two defenses. And we'll move on to the waiver wire wonders, which I also had a tough time finding guys who are under 50%. But I made a list. Some of them are slightly over 50%, but I think you should pick them up or take a look for them anyway. But yeah, let's get into waiver wire wonders.
And I wonder if you know the wonder of it all.
Alright, first on the list for waiver wire wonders is Aaron Jones, the running back for Green Bay, who made his debut this week and ran pretty damn good. I think he had 125 yards rushing. He's owned in 65.6% of leagues. That'll probably drop because Ty Montgomery is expected to return, I think. So you might not be able to get him. He might be one of those guys who gets cut after waivers goes through. So always make sure you double check who was dropped once the waivers go through. You want to go back and look at who people dropped to pick up people off the waiver wire, because sometimes they drop people who are really good. Aaron Jones might be a guy that's on that list, and I don't know if the way he played last week, he looked pretty damn good. I can't imagine that he didn't earn himself some carries as a starter, maybe even a split workload. He's looked the best any running back has looked in that backfield since the start of the season for Green Bay. So keep an eye on Aaron Jones. He's 65.6% owned. But I am expecting him to get a bigger workload. Even not a bigger workload once Ty Montgomery comes back, but I am expecting him to still have a workload. And you can hold him for a few more weeks to see what that workload actually will be. Next on the list is Will Fuller, the wide receiver from Houston. He is 56% owned, and he has 3 touchdowns through 2 weeks. He's obviously being looked at by Deshaun Watson, and as Deshaun Watson's play improves, he becomes a much more viable wide receiver 3, which is what I have him at right now. He is a high ceiling wide receiver 3, a lot of touchdown dependency, because he doesn't get a ton of volume, but his plays are all big plays. Think D-Jax for like his entire career, but even less volume than that. I do think he should be owned. Like I said, he is owned in slightly above 50% of leagues, 56, which means there's about a 1 in 2 chance that he's on your waiver wire. So just take a look. I think he's worth rostering as a startable wide receiver 3. Next on the list is Nelson Aguilar, wide receiver for Philly. He's owned in 20% of leagues. This is another guy who I think is a big-time boomer bust. Probably a flex option. I wouldn't say a wide receiver 3 just because I don't know how consistent his touches will be. He doesn't get a lot of receptions, but he seems to do a lot with the receptions he gets. He does have 3 touchdowns on the year through 5 games now. So he is either converting really big plays or catching his lone red zone target. So keep an eye on Nelson Aguilar, 20% owned. I think he can contribute to your team in the flex spot. Next on the list is a guy who had a big game this week against a bad defense in Marlon Mack. Now, the interesting thing about Marlon Mack is that he's going to perform against bad defenses. And his upcoming matchups, I think after... Who do they play this week? Indy plays Tennessee, bad matchup. Then they play Jacksonville, bad running defense. So I actually like Marlon Mack this week to pick up because I think... Sorry, I'm looking up his stats, or his next upcoming games. So this is the idea with Marlon Mack. He just played San Francisco. He had 9 rushes for 91 yards and a touchdown. Then he plays Tennessee, bad defense, where if he gets touches and he has a good game, you hold on to him into Jacksonville, who has one of the worst ranked rush defenses in the NFL. He has another good game. The idea behind Marlon Mack is after he plays Jacksonville, you flip him and trade him away because he plays Cincinnati, tough defense, Houston, tough defense, Pittsburgh, tough defense. Then he has a bye. Then he has another game against Tennessee and Jacksonville, but then his playoffs are at Buffalo, home against Denver, at Baltimore, and then home against Houston for weeks 14, 15, 16, and 17. He's not a guy you want to hold on to for a long time. But if you can get good weeks out of him, you just got a good week in San Francisco. If you can get another good week in Tennessee and a third good week in Jacksonville, trade him away for a piece after 3 good weeks. Someone will overpay for him, and then you're all set because after that he has a tough rest of season with the defense he's going to go up against, minus 2 more games or 1 more game against each Tennessee and Jacksonville. But other than those 2 games, the rest of his schedule is not favorable after these upcoming 2 weeks. So I say he is worth a pickup. He's only owned in 3.3% of leagues, so he's definitely available. Pick him up. Hopefully he has 2 good weeks for you. He's probably not worth a flex option in Tennessee, but if he has another good week in Tennessee, I would say he's flex worthy versus Jacksonville. And then you can flip him. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If you have the roster spot, it's worth taking a shot on for a tradable asset. And you'll be happy knowing you fleeced whatever owner you traded Marlon Mack to from that point on. Next on the list is the 51.9% owned Cameron Brate. Oof. He is a tight end for Tampa Bay. You should know who Cameron Brate is. He was the tight end for Tampa Bay last year, and it looks like he will be the tight end for Tampa Bay this year. He has gotten a large amount of targets since Tampa Bay started playing. I don't think that's going down any. I don't think he's losing his spot to O.J. Howard. I think Jameis trusts him, especially in the red zone. So I really like Cameron Brate rest of season, and tight ends have been awful. So if you can find one now that you think is start worthy, and like I said, I like to look at volume when it comes to the tight end. How often are they getting targeted? And Cameron Brate and the next guy on this list are both being targeted a ton. So I like them rest of season as tight ends, especially with how crappy tight ends have been. So go pick up Cameron Brate. He's owned in 51.9, so he's just above the cutoff I usually like. But there's a good chance he's still available in one of your leagues. So go get Cameron Brate if you can. Tight end for Tampa Bay. Next on the list is the 36.1% owned Austin Seferian-Jenkins, another tight end for the New York Jets. He was suspended for the first 3 weeks, I think. Came back last week and this week, and he has been targeted many, many times already. I think he might have played 3 weeks. And he has, I think, the lowest amount of catches he had was 4. So he's gotten 4, 5, and 6 catches. Hold on, let me just look this up real fast. Not flexes. I write down all these notes, but I never remember to write down the actual stats for the guys that I like. Because I do it kind of like right before we start doing the podcast. Let's see. Austin Seferian-Jenkins has played 3 weeks. Alright. He was suspended the first 2 weeks. He came back in week 3. He had 5 receptions, then 4 receptions, and then 6 receptions against Cleveland, and he caught a touchdown. So he only had 5 receptions for 31 yards and 4 receptions for 46 yards, and then in Cleveland, he had 6 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. Don't worry about the yardage quite that much. Just look at the consistent amount of catches. That means he's being targeted often, and that means he's catching the ball often. The touchdowns will come. Most tight ends, get a lot of red zone targets. That's going to happen. Just focus on the catches right now because the tight end has been such a bad position this year. You want to look at guys who are getting the ball the most often. Next on the list is probably my most the player I would recommend you go target the most likely available, and the player I'm going after the most, and that is the 26.9% owned Wayne Gallman, running back for the Giants. He is, I think, the best running back for the Giants, especially with OBJ down and Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard banged up. The Giants are going to have to lean on the run, and when they get blown out, because they will be blown out, and they have to shift to a pass, he stays on the field. He had 5 receptions this week. I think he had 2 the week before, but he had a receiving touchdown. He is the closest thing the Giants have to a 3-down back. They still have a running back by committee, but I think Wayne Gallman is the best running back in that committee by far, and he's the most likely running back to receive the most touches. So I really like Wayne Gallman going forward. He is definitely worth a roster spot, and I think is a flex-worthy option for the rest of the season, even though I think the Giants will be awful for the rest of the year. I think the Jets are awful too, but you can always roster Bilal Powell and Matt Forte and Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So I think Wayne Gallman is worth a roster spot. And the last person on my list is a guy I've mentioned a couple times before in previous waiver wire wonders, but I'll probably mention it again, and that is Cooper Kupp, wide receiver for the Rams. He is 40.2% owned. He didn't have a huge week, and he hasn't had a huge week really outside of I think last week he actually had a pretty good week now that I think about it. I know he missed out on the scoring bonanza that was the Rams-San Francisco game. But I like Cooper Kupp. He dropped a touchdown in the end zone versus Seattle this week that would have won the game for them. It hit him right in the hands on a diving play. He should have caught it. But he dropped it. But I'm glad he got the target, is what I'm focused on. He got the red zone target. And that's what matters. And he's been steadily involved in that offense. He's definitely worth rostering. He'll be a solid flex play, especially during the upcoming bye weeks that every team will face. If you need wide receiver depth, I would recommend Cooper Kupp. But that's it for the waiver wire wonders this week. We will move on to the start-sit matchups, and I'll go down the list, tell you who I like in each game and who I am passing on.
I'm ready to go in, Coach. Just give me a chance. I know there's a lot riding on it, but it's all psychological. Just got to stay in a positive frame of mind.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over them mountains? Yeah, if Coach would have put me in fourth quarter, we'd have been state champions, no doubt.
All right. Welcome back to the start-sit part here. We're going to go through the matchups, and I'm going to tell you who I like in each matchup and who I don't like in each matchup. We'll start with the Thursday night game, and that is Philadelphia at Carolina. That is the Thursday night game, right? Yes, Thursday, October 12th. Philly at Carolina. I don't trust my notes for a second. I like Philly this week. I don't know how I feel about the running backs, but I'm playing Carson Wentz. He's been on a hot streak. I'm playing Zach Ertz. I'll probably play Wendell Smallwood if he's healthy, at least in a flex. I would play LeGarrette Blount. If necessary. And then Alshon Jeffrey is good to go. And that's probably it for the wide receivers. You could probably flex Nelson Aguilar if you want to take the risk. Like a big high risk, high reward chance with Nelson Aguilar. But that's probably it. And that's only in the flex. For Carolina, I know I said I would be okay playing the Eagles defense, but I'll probably ride the hot streak with Cam Newton if I had him. Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess are worth playing. And obviously Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan. Play both sides of the ball. I'd be fine playing anyone in this matchup. Chicago at Baltimore. Chicago's playing right now versus Minnesota, who has probably a similar caliber of defense to Baltimore. And not what I wanted here. Hold on, I just want to see how the game's going right now. It is 3-2. The Vikings are at halftime. The Vikings are up 3-2. So Chicago is not moving the ball that well. Trubisky is 9 of 17 for 89 yards. Howard's got 9 rushes for 28. Alright, I'm probably staying away from everyone in Chicago, except for Jordan Howard. And even Tariq Cohen hasn't been worth the plays, worth the starts lately. He's had a couple bad games in a row here. And I don't know what his rapport is with Mitch Trubisky for the rest of the year. I'm a little down on Tariq Cohen right now, actually. So I'm probably only playing Jordan Howard on the Chicago side of the ball. On the Baltimore side of the ball, like I said, Flacco is an okay streaming option. Jeremy Maclin. I'd probably play that. I would probably play that running back, Alex Collins. That I believe he was a waiver wire wonder last week. He had like 50-something yards rushing in the game that just passed on not that many carries. But he seems to be the best running back there. I would play him. I would play Buck Allen. I probably wouldn't play Terrence West. I would play Jeremy Maclin. I might play Mike Wallace. But that's probably it on Baltimore. San Francisco at Washington. Neither of these teams have very good defenses. I would be okay playing Brian Hoyer. I probably could have put him as a streamer. And Pierre Garçon and Carlos Hyde. Which I don't know what the hell is going on with Carlos Hyde. He wasn't running very... They didn't run him very much last week. I don't know why. Maybe he's still a little banged up. So maybe monitor what's going on in practice with Carlos Hyde. But I would play him if he's healthy. Along with Brian Hoyer and Pierre Garçon. Washington side of the ball, obviously I'm playing Kirk Cousins, Terrell Pryor, Jordan Reed or Vernon Davis, who's ever healthy, and Fat Rob if he's healthy. They are coming off a bye, so I'd imagine Fat Rob is back to full health. And Chris Thompson, still playing Chris Thompson. Next on the list is Miami at Atlanta. I don't trust Miami at all. I think their offense is awful. Obviously, I'm playing Jay Ajayi still because you probably paid a high pick for him. If Devontae Parker is healthy, I would play him. If Devontae Parker is not healthy, I would play Jarvis Landry even more than I already would play him. I'm not playing Jay Cutler. Atlanta, start everyone. Start every Atlanta Falcon you have possible against Miami. They are an awful, awful team. And they will continue to be an awful team. New England at New York. Jets. I am playing everyone for New England. Hopefully Gronk is back. Playing all of my New England Patriots. The Jets are very bad. And for the Jets, I'm probably playing any Jets I have. So I don't know if Matt Forte will be back. If he's not back, Bilal Powell is 100% go. Austin Seferi-Jenkins is a go. Josh McCown is a streamer this week I have on the list. And probably Curse I would play. That's probably it for the Jets. Those are probably the Jets we're starting anyway. But I'm playing everyone on both sides of the ball there. New England at New York. Green Bay at Minnesota. Obviously, you're playing Aaron Rodgers. Play Ty Montgomery if he's healthy. If Ty Montgomery's not healthy, go ahead and play Aaron Jones. Play whatever healthy receivers you got in Green Bay. Jordy Nelson seemed like he was banged up. Devontae Adams is back. Martellus Bennett is probably a good start. For Minnesota, I think Sam Bradford just left the game again. But so who knows what's going on with the quarterback situation there. I would still be okay playing Thielen and Diggs. And one more game of Latavius Murray against the Green Bay defense. If you don't get anything out of Latavius Murray at Chicago, or versus Chicago, and then versus Green Bay at home, I don't know how happy I would be with Latavius Murray for the rest of the season. But I would play him this week along with Diggs and Thielen. I definitely wouldn't play the quarterback in Minnesota because who knows what's going on there. And Green Bay, I'm playing all my Packers pretty much. I'm not that afraid of Minnesota's defense, although it has been good. Detroit at New Orleans. You got Drew Brees at home, so you're playing him. I'm playing all of Detroit. So Stafford, Abdullah, maybe Flex Riddick, Golden Tate, whatever wide receivers you have. Eric Ebron maybe is worth a play. New Orleans, you're definitely playing Breeze, playing Michael Thomas, playing Alvin Kamara. I'm playing Ingram. Willie Snead is back. I'd probably play Willie Snead. Maybe you could take one more shot with Kobe Fleener. I think Willie Snead kind of eats into his receptions though. But yeah, I'm definitely playing everyone involved in that game. Detroit at New Orleans. Cleveland at Houston. I'm not playing any Browns. Duke Johnson. That's it. I don't trust that Cleveland offense. They don't even know who the quarterback is. I'm wiping my hands of that whole situation. I might flex Duke Johnson. For Houston, I'm firing up everyone. Deshaun Watson, great play this week. Nuke Hopkins, great play this week. Lamar Miller. I might even flex Deonta Foreman if you had him. Will Fuller, I would play. Even Ellington, I would flex if you had him. Ryan Griffin. I'm playing anyone involved with the Houston Texans. That's just too good of a matchup versus Cleveland at home. Tampa Bay Bucks versus Arizona. Or at Arizona, I'm playing... Obviously, you're playing Mike Evans. I would still play Jameis Winston. I would definitely play Doug Martin. He looked great. I would play Cameron Brate. Even though Arizona is really good against the tight end, I would still take the shot. He's just getting a lot of love from Jameis. And I would probably play D-Jax because I would imagine Mike Evans is going to see a healthy amount of Patrick Peterson. But obviously you still play Mike Evans. For Arizona's side of the ball, I would play a lot of people, actually. I'm playing Andre Ellington. Carson Palmer is actually probably a streaming candidate. If you made it this far into the show, I probably should have put him with the other quarterbacks, but I would stream Carson Palmer this week 100%. So I would play Carson Palmer. I would play John Brown. I would play Jerron Brown. I would play Andre Ellington. I would play J.J. Nelson, pick a Cardinals receiver and flex them. Whichever one you have, or whatever the best one you have is. And I would flex Andre Ellington for sure. To me, Andre Ellington is the running back to own in Arizona. He just is. He gets so many receptions, so many targets in the passing game, and he'll still get, 5 or 6 rushing attempts. I think he's the one to own there. Next on the list is the LA Rams at Jacksonville. I don't like this game as an offensive game. I would play Todd Gurley, obviously. He actually has a good matchup against Jacksonville, who has not a great rush defense. Other than Todd Gurley and Leonard Fournette, I don't know if I would play anyone else in this matchup besides the 2 running backs. I'm definitely playing Todd Gurley for the Rams, and that's it. Because Jacksonville's pass defense is top notch. And I'm definitely playing Leonard Fournette for Jacksonville, but the Rams defense is really good. So the 2 running backs, and I might flex a wide receiver from Jacksonville, Hearns, or the other one, whose name I can't remember right now. But one of the receivers from Jacksonville I might flex, but my only 2 locks for sure I'm playing are Gurley and Fournette. Next on the list is the Chargers at Oakland. Derek Carr's still not back. I would probably still play Crabtree and Cooper, even though E.J. Manuel is the quarterback. I like Marshawn Lynch. And that's probably it. For the Jared Cook, if he's healthy, I think he got banged up. For the Chargers, I'm playing Rivers is a good streaming candidate. I'm playing Keenan Allen. Melvin Gordon is 100% go. He should always be 100% go. Playing Keenan Allen, playing Tyrell Williams, and that's probably it. I'd probably wait and see from any other Chargers receivers. Those 4, Rivers, Gordon, Allen, and Tyrell Williams, I would play versus a weak Oakland defense. Next on the list is Pittsburgh at Kansas City. I really don't like any of the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game outside of Lev Bell and Antonio Brown. I don't think Big Ben's going to have a good game. I mean, you still play Antonio Brown because it's Antonio Brown. But I'm probably not playing any other Pittsburgh Steelers at Kansas City. For Kansas City, you fire up your usual suspects in Kansas City. Alex Smith is probably a weekly starter at this point. He just keeps getting it done. So you fire up Alex Smith, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce. Those are the 4 guys you start for Kansas City every week. I don't think I've ever changed who you should start. But yeah, I'm starting the big 4 for Kansas City and probably just Lev Bell and Antonio Brown. for Pittsburgh. For the Giants at Denver, I'm staying away from every Giant. I'm staying away from every Giant possible. They say, well, someone has to score points. That's absolutely not true. I don't think any Giants will score points. I know you just picked up Wayne Gallman, but that was just to hold on to him for the rest of the weeks, because I don't not like anything about the New York Giants in Denver versus Denver at all. As far as the Broncos go, the Giants defense, while being a good defense, has not been as good as people have expected them to be. I am probably playing any Denver Broncos I own, because I'm not going to curve this whole game, and I think Denver is going to be so dominant on defense that they are going to get short field. Who's probably a good play? Denver's field goal kicker. That's not even a joke. They probably get short field a lot, and New York's defense is just good enough to keep them from scoring touchdowns. Denver's field goal kicker might be the way to go. I would probably still play Demaryius Thomas. I would still play Emmanuel Sanders. I would still play C.J. Anderson. And I would honestly think about picking up Denver's field goal kicker. I don't know who it is, but that matchup screams field goal matchup to me. That is the Monday night game, I think, too. So I like Denver's field goal kicker. I never thought I would say that. But that's all the matchups. So that's it for week 6, guys. Hopefully my advice helps you out. You get a big win. I could use a big win in pretty much all my leagues. I think I just snuck one out here in my main league because of the Sam Bradford situation and the fact that it looks like he's done playing. So it looks like I might have just snuck out a win here out of this awful, awful week I had. So that's always good news. But best of luck to all of you guys. And go ahead and rate, review, subscribe on the B.S.N. network, the new relaunched B.S.N. network. We have a lot of exciting content coming. Some new shows will be debuting this week. We got WECP back at full capacity. Another Dave Speaks coming. And some new shows being launched. Some additions to the network. So subscribe now to get all of that in one big feed. Go on iTunes, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And I will see you guys next Tuesday, same place, roughly the same time. Have a nice night.